Okay, now it's live. Okay, so I'm Lindsay Peterson, and I'm this week's group leader. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick?
Sure, I'm Melissa Hinkson, and that's all.
And I'm Danielle Lakin.
Perfect. Okay, so let me just open the questions we have really quick. I was going to ask you guys if you would rather go through every question like individually, or if you want to talk about an advocate at a time, or if you had a preference. Do you guys care?
I think we should do an advocate at a time because then it's easier for us to interject than if
Yeah,
we were just to read or go through all of it one by one.
that makes sense. So let's start with Advocate 1. So Advocate 1 was against same-sex marriage. So Melissa, do you want to start us off on what you thought about that?
Sure. So I felt like he was pretty effective in using the me, story of us, and story of now. I wasn't a big fan of him, but it probably was because I just felt like he was disagreeable while he was disagreeing, which, as we know, is something we should probably avoid when we are trying to be persuasive. And I felt like he was using personal attacks a bit, but it
Yeah.
could just because he was using very forceful religious rhetoric.
Yeah.
So also, the basis or premise for his stance was obviously God's law rules against same-sex marriage. That was kind of like his base. Um, if I was on the fence, I'd probably rule in favor of same-sex marriage after I listened to him. That's how I felt. He just came across as taking the moral high ground, and morals are, as we learned from, what's her name? Miriam or something? Or who is Marcia
Yeah.
Barlow. Um, morals are, I mean, morals can mean different things to different people, and religious morals aren't necessarily persuasive. But he could have been from a religious background in the first place, so he probably was representing that. And if
Yeah.
that's the case, then, I mean, he still wasn't convincing to me. But that was me.
Yeah. Awesome. I agree with a lot of what you said. Danielle, what was your take on it?
I was pretty similar to Melissa. Um, I did not like listening to him. I thought that he was actually really good at being very loud, but that actually kind of hurt him because it was like, oh, well, that's how you think of God? Okay, and there's some things that I was like, okay, I don't quite agree with that. And
Yeah.
it just kind of like stuck out as a sore thumb to me because it's like, okay, I'm religious, but I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Or, and you think I'm wrong because I don't think of God that way. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. It was strong.
Yeah.
It
Opinion
was,
very strong.
and it made it hard to listen to. And I was watching the people behind him because there was like four people standing behind him. They looked like they were having trouble listening to them, and I didn't blame them.
They were just sitting there like the whole time.
Okay.
That's
And
basically
so,
what I thought.
what's that?
That's what I thought. That's all. I'm just saying
Okay.
it.
Yeah, so I thought the same thing. I said he didn't have any principles of effective speaking because I don't know, he just referred to scripture a lot, and that he didn't really capture his audience. Obviously, you could see that with the people behind him, and I don't think he did a very good job at defending his point, and because it was just, I don't know, it was just like, I'm right, and this is how it is, but there's no like reasoning or convincing of that, you know?
Yeah.
And so basically the only thing I got from it was that he was against it, but he didn't make me want to be against it. You know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he didn't persuade you.
Right, exactly. So that was the first advocate, and I was kind of bummed that he was. I don't want to be rude, but he was talking a little weird too. Like Danielle said, he was talking really loud, and so it made you uncomfortable. So, it was really a good speech. Okay, let me scroll down really quick. Okay, so Melissa, if we want to go back to you, what did you think of advocate number 2 for same-sex marriage?
Okay, so I remember this guy from when he gave this speech originally. It was a while back, wasn't it? Like I think it was like early, it was like 2010 or 2011, right? I'm pretty sure it was a little while back. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, when I first heard this, I was much younger and impressionable, and when I heard him, I was swayed, and I was actually confused because he made a lot of logical points, and he used reason in a way that I never heard that side before of same-sex marriage. And I realize now that the reason he was so persuasive is because he was using a really effective narrative of self, and I felt like he talked about the we, and then he talked, or us, and then he talked about now very well. He definitely went in that sequence, and it was touching in some ways. Obviously, points of it confused me, so things didn't settle well. I didn't believe in what he was saying, but I mean, I think if I was on the fence, I would have toppled to his favor.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like his basis was gay parenting is no different than heterosexual parenting. And another premise he used was the family is just simply commitment. There's nothing more to a family. If you've got commitment, you're a family.
Yeah.
Less effective things in his speech. He didn't talk at all, I felt like, about research or data to back up his claims. His sample size was just himself. So that's what I found.
Cool. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, he did just talk about himself. I'm trying to remember. Did he use any statistics of?
No.
I don't think he did.
I was gonna say, because I was trying to think. I watched them last night, so I was trying to remember really quick if he did or not, but I don't think he did. I think you're right. Okay, Danielle, what did you feel about him?
I felt kind of a similar way. I haven't listened to it before, but I thought that he came off very likable. He came off very trusting, and I think it was the narrative because it's like, okay, now I understand who you are, and then he used that to his advantage, and he's like, you know what, I turned out all right, so why wouldn't anyone else? And you know what, I was thinking that in my head too. I was like, well, he turned out okay.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did catch on to his sample size was 1, and it's like, all right, well, you could have turned out all right, but everybody else could be like, I don't know, off the deep end. Nobody knows where they are anymore. We just don't know based on what his speech was, but he was very convincing. His stance was, well, it's all right, because I'm all right, basically. What was less effective was that oh, that was just the data again. Okay, so.
Okay, so same as Melissa.
Yeah.
What did I say for that? Oh, okay. Okay, so, yeah, I pretty much said what you guys said. I said he was interesting, relaxed, and comfortable throughout the whole thing. Oh, that's what I was going to say about the first advocate, that he seemed very nervous, and maybe that's why he was talking so loud, because he was so, like, he seemed tense, and you know, this guy was super relaxed and comfortable. You you felt like you knew him because that's how he was talking. Like, he was really comfortable. Like, let me tell you who I am, and I'm
Yeah.
fine, and this is what I'm saying, you know? So, another thing is that, you know, he did a good job because the people behind him this time were, like, constantly nodding the whole time. They're like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then he got a huge applause when he finished.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the whole place, you know, really liked what he said, or at least how he presented it. And so yeah, I said the same thing, just worded differently. His premise was on family because he used his own family as an example of why same-sex marriage isn't a threat to families' love or success. Because he went on to talk about, you know, what was it that he excelled in school or something, that he was successful, basically,
Yeah.
saying that it didn't affect success or anything.
Yeah. Or the content of his character.
Right. So yeah, I agree. If I was on the fence, I would probably be aligned with his. Out of these two examples, I would go with him because they were kind of like night and day as far as how effective they were, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we can move on to the article by Matt Walsh. And so, Melissa, we'll have you start again.
Okay. So I felt like what was pretty effective was that he, right off at the very beginning, he addressed his opposition, just like right there, which was neat. He also, his basis was the family, defending the family. And by the way, I thought it was pretty cool, Lindsay, that you said that the premise for the same-sex marriage advocate was family, because in my mind I was like, just that all the things that were wrong about the family. But the thing is, he was advocating just family in general. He wasn't advocating, in his mind, it was just family. That was his center.
Right.
Anyway, back to this. So family for him was also the center, but it was a different center. I would have been swayed. I felt like his arguments were logical. He also used the me, us, and now. I felt like what was not so effective was the name calling. Like, he was calling them cowards and talking bad about other Christians.
Yeah.
He didn't really include any resources or data either. It was strictly opinion, which is a blog. Blogs, I guess, have more leeway to do that, I feel like, but still, I wished I could. I went back to see if I could find any hyperlinks or resources, and there was nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, so does that mean all of the, you know, like things he's talking about, Prop 8 and stuff, were just coming from him? Like, he didn't...
Oh, I felt like that. Maybe it was. There. That makes me wonder.
Well, no, I mean, I didn't even check, and so I'm just wondering if he cited anything, or if he just was...
I didn't see
about.
And it sounded kind of like it was coming out of his head, because I picked up on that. I was like, because he mentioned, he was just kind of like starting to backtalk the judicial branch, and he's like, they're doing what they're not supposed to be doing, and I was like, actually, they have that right to do that.
Yeah.
They're checks and balances. They're supposed to check the legislative branch. Like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
So,
Okay.
anyway, I would have been swayed. Because of, he just, he represented a lot of my beliefs, so that probably is the reason I'd be swayed. Not necessarily based on the effectiveness of his argument, but because of he just aligned with a lot of things I currently believe.
Right.
And he made me think differently, which was important. Reframing. He reframed a lot of things for me.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that's what I was... It's hard to take yourself out and forget what you already believe and try to look at it as if you'd like never heard anything about gay marriage or this issue, and base it off of these examples. It's hard to do because you already have what you think. But
yeah.
Okay, so Danielle, what did you think about the article?
Okay. When he started out, I thought he had a wonderful introduction because I think like it just is like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but at the same time, thinking about it after I read the article, I was like, maybe the introduction was just effective on me because I already knew what he was talking about and I was already on his side. So
Yeah.
I thought that, and then the base of his stance was that marriage was logical and rational as it is, and that it should be defended as such. I thought that he kind of undermined himself a little bit on that standpoint because I just kept on wanting him to explain why marriage was logical and why it was rational. He just kept on stating that it was, and I was like, all right, prove it. Prove it. I was interested in it. I think I picked up on that because I was interested. I was like, I want to know why marriage is rational and logical. I want to know that defense as well because I could use that.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Because you want to back it up.
Yeah. I said that if I was on the fence, I was just trying to think because, you know what, he insulted a lot of people, Christians. If I was a Christian and I was on the fence, I would be like, I don't know, because he came off a little religious as well, and he didn't seem to know what he was talking about with the judicial branch, and I was like, are you educated in government? Like, do you know how the system works? And he also like talked about how like the people should like have all the power, and because the people in California said Prop A, then everyone should, and yet there's a reason why there are representatives and people who can overrule the popular ruling and stuff.
That's very true.
Yeah. I agree. I think that he just reminds me of a really conservative, like, extremist. So, in that way, like, he's the kind of guy that would be on the show, what's Doomsday Preppers?
That's so ridiculous.
You know what I'm talking about? Okay. He would be the guy at the front, like, leading the group.
Leading the way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so I thought as far as effectiveness, I guess I don't know. I don't know if I want to take this back or not. I said honesty, but really if anybody's talking about their opinion, they're going to be honest. So I don't know if that's necessarily effective or not, but that's what I said. And I said good organization and detail, but then you guys pointed out that it's not backed up, that he was just kind of talking about it. So now that kind of changes things. And I said that his premise was standing for what you believe in and not doing the popular thing, because that's what he said a lot. You know, just different comments about how Christians, kind of being judgmental, how Christians should not be doing the popular thing, and no matter what, he's going to do the right thing. You know, I don't know. He said it a lot more rude, though, in his article. And I said if I were on the fence, I'd have to take some things into consideration, but there's a lot missing from it, too. But that's true to think about as well, that it is just a blog. It's not necessarily like an official document research paper on whether or not you should agree or disagree. So, I mean, you have to remember that too. Because you can go find any blog with somebody opinionated and try to base your opinions off of their opinions with no substantial anything. So, but why would you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the very bottom it said, what questions do you still have? Did anybody still have questions? I didn't know if that meant in regards to the articles or just in general? Do you guys have questions?
No.
I know, I put nothing. I was like, no.
I know, I put question marks. I was like, I don't really know what question I would have, but
Yeah.
cool. Well, did you guys want to go back to anything? Are there any comments that you missed that you wanted to say? Or do you feel like we covered it?
I feel good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. Okay, well then I will quickly do our little summary here, if I can get set up. All right. So, beginning with advocate number 1, who's against same-sex marriage. None of us were a big fan, even though I think the majority here would agree with being against same-sex marriage. We're a big fan. He was disagreeable when he was disagreeing. He did personal attacks. He did it really loud, and it was hard to listen to. Even the people behind him weren't very interested in what he had to say. His premise was God's law rules and just a religious basis. And if we were on the fence, we would probably be for same-sex marriage. I think most of us said that because he just didn't make a very good argument. Let's see. So advocate number 2 is for same-sex marriage, and we were swayed, and we thought he had a lot of logic and reason, and he was likable, personable, and relaxed, and so he would have swayed us. We thought that his premise was that gay parenting is no different than heterosexual parenting, and that the family is a commitment, as well as just the family, meaning that gay marriage wouldn't affect families' love or success, or it's all right because I'm all right type thinking. If we were on the fence, sorry to say that, if we were on the fence, we would probably align with him because he had an effective speech. The only thing that was less effective was that there was no data or research. It was more his experience. And then lastly, the article by Matt Walsh. We thought he directed his opposition, which was really good and effective, and also had a really good intro. I thought that he was honest and had a good organization. And then the basis was the family, that marriage is logical and rational and should be presented as such, and standing for what you believe in and not going with the popular opinion. And we said if we were on the fence, we're not really sure because he insulted a lot of people, although Melissa said that she was swayed because the arguments were logical, and he used the me, us, now. And so we kind of split on that. And then as far as what was less effective was all the name calling and strictly opinion, and yeah, kind of just his voice throughout because he was kind of rude at times. So that was our summary, and I'll go ahead and stop the broadcast.